The zombies community has become one of the most polarized and frankly toxic communities in the gaming world. It's at the point where no matter what the developers do, there will be hatred and public backlash from the community. As a zombies fan, if you enjoy the new games, you must have never played the old ones, because the new ones are absolute trash in comparison. If you talk about the good old days, you're too nostalgic and are stuck in the past. Everyone has an opinion, and these days, most people make those opinions known. I'm well aware that I'm also here spreading my opinion, and of course we always think that our opinion is the correct one. My purpose in making this video is to explain to the new zombies enjoyers why us old heads are the way that we are, and why we miss the old zombies so much. But also, I'm hoping to encourage the OGs, myself included, to have an open mind and to realize that while not perfect, maybe this new zombies isn't so bad. I know not everyone fits into one of these specific mindsets, but hopefully you'll stick with me anyways. So sit back, relax, and hear me out for a minute, while I first explain why a big part of the zombies community can't move on from the good old days. So, first things first, I've been playing zombies since day one. I loaded into Dr. Untoten after the World at War campaign when it was just a little side project. I've been there for every Easter egg since, and most of them I watched with one earbud in while sitting in the cafeteria for lunch at school. I remember every fake video, from Hitler being in Deriz, to the golden ray gun, to the ladder descending if you survive long enough on Kino. I got in trouble with my friends for heating up the house by leaving on my Xbox all night while standing on top of the glitched death spot on 5. I remember the desperate cries of our squad when the transit bus left them behind with the Avogadro, and similarly, the pleads to be revived because someone had the ray gun. My point is, zombies has been a part of my life growing up. I've heard the vodka jokes from Nikolai, Dempsey's screams, Richtofen's insanity, and Takio's humility for over a decade, and that is something that you just can't replicate as a new player. I don't know what the game is for you, but just for a second, try to make that connection in your head to whatever comes to mind. Maybe it's Halo, Super Mario, or Pokemon, or even Fortnite, or who knows what else depending on your age. But I think that Call of Duty Zombies is one of those games for a lot of us. While I openly admit that I'm nostalgic about old zombies, I think for the majority of us, this is not the main reason behind the apprehension towards the new games. There's so many little things that add up to make us feel this way. And let me caveat this by saying I'm a firm believer that the new zombies isn't bad at all. So I'm going to try to make this list of things that maybe aren't as good as they used to be in order of how big of a deal it is, in my opinion, as well as if it's fixable. Some of these things may not seem like a big issue on the surface, but just have an open mind and feel free to let me know how wrong I am in the comments. We'll get to a lot of positives in the new game in the second half of this. First things first, and it's the characters. At least with Black Ops 6, we did get a set canon crew of characters that move through each map, but my god man, it seems like they just made all of the dialogue by typing in to AI clever quips to say when shooting zombies. The characters feel so bland and lifeless, and that couldn't have been farther from the case in the old games.
He cannot fight now! He's been disarmed!
We need someone to latch on to get interested in this story. And with the current story, they're just dangling all of the old characters in front of us to get us excited, rather than putting in any real effort to create something new that had as much love put into it as the old crew. I quite literally couldn't even tell you all 4 of the characters' names off the top of my head right now. I know Maya because they talk about her all the time, but other than that, I remember Strauss because of the Strauss counter equipment for Easter egg steps, even though he's not even a playable character. And I do remember Raptor 1 because he flies the chopper. I've played literally every map and beat every Easter egg in Cold War and Black Ops 6, and those are the only characters I remember, outside of the old ones. As for memorable voice lines, I definitely recall whichever character it is saying,
"Goodness me! It's all go around here! Oh shit! Did anyone else see that? Sweetheart! Anyone?"
Like I said, it just feels like they couldn't have made it any more generic if they tried. In comparison, here are a few Dempsey quotes that just show his character through and through, rather than these just generic one-liners.
Die, you undead flesh addict! K to the I to the A, some bitch!
Now, I hope they do the old characters justice in bringing them back, But that isn't the answer. I really hope they take the time to build out our new characters to make them more memorable, or bring in new and improved ones, rather than just relying on the past. As a positive example, I think some of the lines from the Arsenal Sergeant thing where you upgrade your weapons are hilarious and so well done. It feels like there was actually some effort put into that, and I remember having random laughs in several games because of those voice lines. It's little things like that that the community appreciates because we've grown to expect it from the amazing crew we grew up with. If you aren't familiar with some of the voice lines from the old games, I really encourage you to take the time to look up some of the highlights from the original crew. Their lines could make the most boring maps even somewhat enjoyable, just because you never knew what the hell was about to come out of their mouth. Each time you loaded in, you were randomly assigned a different character, and each one was so drastically different that the character lines alone changed your gaming experience entirely. Sometimes I go back and play the old games and still seem to find new voice lines that I feel like I've never heard before. And each character wasn't one-dimensional either. You may get an absolutely out-of-pocket vodka joke from Nikolai one second, and then a sentimental quote about his life with his family before the war. My advice is to give whoever wrote the voice lines for the Armory machine some more creative freedom, and bring some more light to our current characters to form some more connection with the player. It adds so much to the game, and creates a connection that just won't be attainable without some improvements. It guides the player's thoughts, and right now, all it really consists of is very obvious story Easter egg quotes and lighthearted quips when killing zombies. The new games just feel off from a real zombies experience, and it starts with the characters. Next is the weapons system. I think that this is just an amalgamation of little things that add up to hinder the gameplay experience in a big way. First, loading in with your choice of starting weapon. I personally disagree with this, as I think it's a big part of the experience to start off struggling with a pistol that can only get you through a few rounds. And not only that, but what is the point of the mystery box, wall weapons, and honestly even a second weapon slot if you load in with your choice of gun from the second you spawn in? Sure, the weapon you start with is gray rarity and therefore may be weaker than wall weapons, but you can't tell me that the meta isn't spawning in with the best weapon and just focusing every point and salvage drop you get into that weapon. If you see your teammates hitting the box or even upgrading 2 different weapons before they have one fully upgraded, you know they probably aren't familiar with the new zombie system. Now, to the people that say you should just spawn in with a pistol if you want that experience, the fundamental issue with that is, the game is not balanced for that. At first it seems fine, just like in old games, your gray pistol may struggle to kill zombies into rounds 2 and 3. But the issue is, you aren't getting points for shooting zombies. You only get points for kills, so now you have a useless gun, and you have to rely on another weapon or your melee slot anyway. Now, I think the game is easy enough that you could get by doing this, but why would you purposefully hinder yourself when your teammates are going to be starting with a great gun anyway? So, you start with your favorite weapon, or the meta depending on what type of player you are. So again, my question is, why would you ever buy a gun off the wall or hit the box? Unless you're just trying to prove a point, you don't. Maybe you need the wonder weapon because your other teammate got the free one since each map allows you to build it, which I don't think is a bad thing, but outside of that, there is no point. Another small thing is that each gun is pretty balanced. Now, why would that be a bad thing? It seems like balance should be good, but zombies isn't meant to be balanced. Some weapons are supposed to be better than others, but that provides yet another issue with starting with whatever weapon you want. When you hit the box in old games and you pull a commando or a Galil or a haymaker, that's what makes the mystery box so fun. Those weapons aren't attainable except from the mystery box, and they're just better than most other guns. Sure, there are plenty of other good wall buys too, especially in Black Ops 3, but once again, this is another aspect that makes wall buys and the mystery box useless, and with that, Zombies loses a bit more of its whimsy and fun. Also, in my opinion, the old point system was just so much more fun, and you always had that trade-off of either using a safer option with a shotgun like the haymaker, or something like the ray gun, or using an SMG to grind for points. It made your playstyle a bit more strategic, and killing zombies just felt a little bit better. When you had a horde of zombies, an SMG with a big magazine, like the Weevil or the PPSH, the feeling was otherworldly when a double points dropped, and you got to watch your points ascend by the thousands. But again, there's just no way this would work with the current system. If it were the old system, you could load in with whatever the PPSMG is called that has the big magazine, and you could have 9 different attachments including extended mag 7 to give you 200 bullets in one magazine before you have to reload, and you just leave it gray rarity while you upgrade a second gun, and you have quite literally unlimited points. You just spray into zombies with that and you can't kill them, buy ammo for 200 points, and you can easily have over 100k by round 10. So with that in mind, a simple switch to the old point system doesn't work either. And a side note, I also don't think you should be able to buy ammo whenever you want. I feel like there are so many things that used to make zombies an experience, and this is yet another thing that new players just don't know about. That feeling when you finally got a max ammo drop when you and your friends were all running low on ammo is once again something that adds to the experience, but now max ammos are no big deal. For the new players, it used to also be another big gameplay strategy choice to either run maybe a better weapon like the Haymaker, or just use the KRM as it's a wall buy, and it's honestly great too, but you can buy ammo off the wall if you're running low. The Wonder Weapon used to have to be used sparingly, as it didn't effectively have unlimited ammo, so every shot felt special. And on that note, the Wonder Weapons in this game felt so uninspired. There were so many remakes, and the only really unique one was the swords. I don't hate the Gorg effects, and I do like the story-driven upgrades, so that's great. But having the jet gun, ice staff, and variants of the ray gun that we've basically seen before in Alpha Omega were all pretty boring, and led to people just using the Mustang and Sally equivalent, or just base weapons instead. Wonder Weapons in the old games were honestly pretty touch and go at times too. Some were just boring or severely underpowered, but I feel like it's been forever since we've had something of the same calendar as the Wonder Waff, the Thunder Gun, the Baby Gun, or the Apothecon Servant. The swords were a cool concept, but they were too afraid to make them overpowered, so they weren't as fun. I think they could have left the regular attacks the same, but made the charge stuff way better or just happen more often, and it would have been great. Other than that, there wasn't much to remember from the new games. Anyways, while I think the old points system is more enjoyable, the new one isn't that bad. But I do think that starting with whatever gun you want absolutely is. If they have to leave this feature in, maybe at least make it one weapon from each class, like you could pick from one SMG, one AR, sniper, etc. And ideally it would be the worst one, because again, the point of those weapons on the wall and hitting the box is for them to be used to get better weapons as you progress. That's just my 2 cents, and I know people like it for camo grinding and whatever else, but the game is already so easy, and I know how the majority of the community is. You guys are looking up the best guns and the best attachments to use on day 1, and then never use another gun, and that's just not the point of zombies. Let me know if you agree. And on that note, my next point is the difficulty. I'm not lying or trying to be dramatic to prove a point when I say this. I don't know that I've went down one single time in Black Ops 6 or Cold War outside of boss fights or because of watching a video for Easter egg steps on another monitor. Between the armor system, perk augments, starting with a great weapon, omni movement, mantling, tack sprinting, and just generally how easy it is to run by zombies, for someone like me who is used to a 2 or 3 hit down system with sticky zombies and double swipes, the game is just kind of boring. This is a tough one because I really don't know that it's fixable for someone like me who's used to the difficulty of the old games. I think we cater more to the casual community now, and while I definitely think Black Ops 6 is a step in the right direction in comparison to Cold War, it's still just far too easy. But also something I do struggle with is the fact that society as a whole is just getting better and better at video games at a very fast pace. I mean, just join a multiplayer game and see how many people are crouch proning like they're in the CoD championships. So why is that skill not translated to zombies? Are they really catering to the quote-unquote casual community? Or are they just catering to the camo grinders that don't actually care about the mode, but want it to be easy so they can get through the grind faster? It used to be a challenge to get to round 30 plus, and Easter eggs used to be difficult to get through, not because of boss fights, but because surviving was hard. If you join a game of zombies knowing you can survive for 10 plus hours with no real threat of ever dying, it just turns into a lifeless experience. We'll talk about the Easter eggs and boss fights later, but for now I'm just talking about the regular gameplay experience. So how can they fix this? Well, there are many answers, and most of them would be super easy. My first one would be simply make the zombies do more damage. The fact that I can take like 40 hits before going down once I upgrade my armor is just too much. It makes you lazy. Again, once I play the new games and go back to the old, I'm so overconfident and usually go down at least a few times, trying to run around a horde where I would usually get hit and keep moving in the new games, but immediately die in the old ones. Base zombies just aren't a threat at all in the new games. So, especially early on, Treyarch's Remedy seemed to be spamming mini-bosses in the map like they were normal zombies. Outside of sheer annoyance, this didn't work well because even the mini-bosses weren't a challenge. And I know the old game haters like to argue that it was the same way with the shield, which is partially true, but at least with that, it only covers your back. If you get stuck or run by a horde and they aren't on your back, you're dead. If you get trapped and turn your back, sure, you might temporarily be saved before your shield breaks, but you can't even face towards the zombies to shoot them. I'm not saying to remove the armor system or augments or any of that, but maybe just balance the game in a way that acknowledges that these things are in the game. I think the most ideal way to combat this would be a combination of the starting weapon fixes I mentioned earlier, so the player doesn't have access to the best weapons immediately, and also just generally more zombie damage. What I don't want though is more projectile damage like from manglers or the parasites. Just normal zombies should be a threat too. I think this will be the last of the negatives, so hopefully you've stuck around and we can talk about some good stuff too. But the ambience doesn't feel like zombies. It seems like they've done the least amount possible by just throwing some general clutter, blood, and some dark ether crystals into a facility and called it a zombies map. Again, I think Black Ops 6 is a huge improvement from Cold War. But even still, I struggle with remembering the differences in each map, just because they don't have an identity. Like I said, Black Ops 6 does this better than Cold War, so I hope they keep it up, because I do think Citadelle at least has the swords and the castle style, Terminus is the jungle and water map, and Janus Towers is, well, towers. As for the others, I don't think they're bad maps, but they just lack identity. I feel like every single map back in the day was so easily identifiable and different. I mean, look at Kino in 5, Origins, Buried, Mob of the Dead, Moon, and even in World at War, each map had a very specific and unique vibe. These days, it all just kind of blends together. Like I said, this has been improving, but still, they could do a lot of things to make it even better. I think map unique weapons is something they should definitely bring back, like the bootlegger on Shadows, the Mauser and LMG on Origins, the Thompson and Mob, the Remington and Buried. Stuff like that is low-hanging fruit and sets the map apart very easily. Some more things are stuff like the HUD, the character quotes, the lighting, obviously the setting. Please no more basic facility maps. The color scales and the wonder weapon all add up to make each map unique and memorable. I know I already touched on this, but the wonder weapons have been super lacking in the latest games. They just aren't memorable, maybe outside of the swords and the gun with the spinning thing from Cold War. But there's another huge thing that contributes to the map's feel. I mean, can you imagine Buried without the Paralyzer and that iconic sound and the game mechanics it adds, or Origins without the staffs? Kind of segueing into the positive aspects, the boss fights in Black Ops 6 actually do a great job of creating that unique vibe. All of them are memorable, and that's honestly the only way I can remember to set each map apart. With that said, I think the new age of zombies is honestly so close to being great. And while I don't think we'll ever experience something like what the OG story did for the community, I can appreciate some great things they're doing. I left out a few things that some may consider bad aspects like the armor system, salvage, score streaks. These are all things that I feel like just aren't actually bad, but could be implemented in a better way. The salvage drops, plating up, and going to a table with a menu to buy any score streak you want just feels out of place. And I feel like these all have easy fixes, but I just don't see them doing it. If we do have to have all these things, I think salvage could easily just be given to the player rather than dropped on the floor, and it would remove such an eyesore from each game. Similarly, I'm fine with score streaks being in the game, but I wish they did a bit more to work them into the story rather than just being at a table, and I really don't think they should be able to drop from boss zombies as the game is already so easy. We don't need extra score streaks. The high round strategies shouldn't all rely on chopper gunners and mutant injections, although I do appreciate that score streak, as it's very unique and fun. Armor could easily be explained away as padding for your character that protects from zombie attacks rather than bulletproof plates. and I think it would add a ton of difficulty if we had to buy armor each time to fill it up rather than plating up, but I do recognize that it would be super annoying to go buy it every 2 seconds, so maybe they could make armor last a bit longer rather than breaking so quickly or something. That one is a bit more tedious, but I think they could easily find a way to work it into the story. And if you haven't caught on, I'm just not a fan of all the drops on the ground. It just makes it feel like Warzone and takes away from the atmosphere of the map. Also, quickly to touch on gobblegums, I think you can do just fine without them. All it does is make the game even easier than it already is. So having them in the game isn't that big of a deal. They're fun, and I don't really have much to say about it. Those are all minor things that I unfortunately don't think will be changed, but with all the complaints out of our system, let's get into the positives. So again, I think I'll go for my absolute favorites and then move down until I run out of things to say. I'm glad you're here for some positive stuff too, so let's get into it. I touched on it earlier, but I think Black Ops 6 may have the best boss fights in the franchise. I'm not sure how everyone else feels, but Patient 13, the Guardian, the T-Rex, and both Sam and Richtofen, that is a crazy lineup and is easily the best part of this game for me. Not only are they just cool concepts, but each is fun, different, and actually challenging. The only reason I've replayed these maps is to get to the boss fights, and this is the only time me and my friends have realistically died because of the gameplay rather than just not paying attention. I'm not sure if we beat any of them first try, and granted, at least the first few tries, I don't ever watch videos talking about the best guns and strategy to beat them. Again, why are we playing the game if we immediately look up what to do? I understand it for Easter egg steps, because we just don't have time for that, but immediately looking up the best weapons to counter the bosses just doesn't make sense to me. It's fun to test things out on your own, and once we do beat the boss, we usually don't go back to the maps often, because, like I said earlier, it doesn't feel as enjoyable when there isn't a chance you'll die, unless you choose to end the game. So if you're someone who's looking up the best ways to beat the boss on day one, maybe just wait a bit and try things out on your own. Maybe you'll have some more fun, and maybe you can beat it without the best weapons possible, which is so much more impressive. I honestly don't know if I can pick a favorite. Each one really is so different and so fun. I never thought we'd be fighting a dinosaur in Zombies, or a massive octopus thing, and the dual boss fight style of The Reckoning is so cool. Richtofen and Sam both provide a challenge, and they did a great job with each. Richtofen having the mecha suit and then the Wunderwaffe is such a nice touch. And even though I think I would love the fact that we're fighting him either way, no matter what, strictly due to his character history, they smashed it with how many fun moments there are. From Sam yeeting you thousands of feet in the air, to the first time you saw Richtofen pop up out of that suit and zoom into the atmosphere to single-handedly drop an airstrike on you. It really does remind me of the old days and how often the developers had us feeling so impressed and in awe of their creativity. I really can't stress enough, while Black Ops 6 is fun, without these boss fights, the game is far too easy, and I really don't know that I would play any of these maps more than once or twice if it wasn't for the boss fights. So I appreciate the challenge, the creativity, and the process of getting there so much. Another big thing they've done right in these games is that killing zombies is fun. It feels great to take out a horde. It seems like that should be the bare minimum, but they've done a great job keeping that arcade feel where it's just fun to play. With that said, I do wish that bullet weapons in the newer games were good for longer. Basically, if you don't hyper focus one weapon, then you end up having to rely on either a wonder weapon or explosive weapons to get you through to the higher rounds. Like I mentioned earlier, if zombies hit harder, it would only be fair that we get hit harder right back. On top of that, omni movement, tag sprinting, and mantling has made training and moving around the map super fun, especially with stamina up in PhD Slider. You can really move so fast, which I appreciate a lot. It feels a lot like the Black Ops 3 slide chaining, which is awesome. If the mechanics of the game are just enjoyable from the base level, then that makes it even easier on them to make their maps have more layers of fun on top of that. I'm droning on about it, but if the game were just a bit harder, maybe I would just hop into a match more often to just play, because it is fun, but it just feels pointless when I could play for hours and hours and just have to decide when I get sick of it, rather than maybe actually going down early because of a mistake and having to try again the next day. Next, the Easter eggs, both main and side, have been such a step up from Cold War, and it also adds so much to the replayability and shouldn't go underappreciated. First, the main eggs are all fun. Nothing is too tedious or insanely time consuming, but still, it's not the easiest thing in the world either. I think Cold War took it way too far in the wrong direction with how simple and spoon-fed the story was, but I think they reined that back in with Black Ops 6 and found a pretty good happy medium. No, maybe there won't be any week-long egg hunts that leaves the community working together to find a solution, but also, the steps generally actually make sense. Rather than shooting random floating rocks or whatever they decided to do to artificially inflate the hunt times back in the day, I think the Reckoning specifically did a good job. It took several hours, which I feel like is the sweet spot for these type of things. I mean, it was tricky, but not unreasonable. Steps like hitting the mop bucket into the right place or inspecting your sword in front of the statues are cool new innovations that aren't hard to replicate, but were difficult to find at first. Watching a good old Mr. Waffles video and getting through the egg with friends on day one has been fun again, and I really think this is where the game shines, and honestly feels pretty similar to the old stuff. Sure, maybe it is a bit more obvious and the character dialogue leads you on just a bit more, but it's still a fun experience, and at least in Black Ops 6, there isn't much to complain about. In the same vein, the side eggs are bustling in this game. There are so many side eggs in this game, especially in the first couple maps, but there are still plenty to keep up with into the DLC season. I honestly think the simplest one is the best one. Having the little power-up eggs on each map is such an easy addition that really feels so rewarding to have just a bit of map knowledge. Being able to spawn at double points or insta-kill for free each game if you know where to look, or any other power-up, is such a nice thing, so props to the developers for that. Outside of that, there were a ton of good things in this game, like Aetherella and Liberty, Crab Island on Terminus, the rats on Citadelle, the parachute and sharpshooter challenges on Reckoning, and obviously so many more that I'm not going to mention here. But honestly, I can say they did a great job with this, and I hope they continue to do the same in the future. One kind of middle of the road thing is the mini bosses and special rounds, which were very much hit and miss in Black Ops 6, but the same can be said for the old games as well. The vermin rounds did get fixed, but for several weeks on launch, they were just way too long and ruined the flow of the game, and it just should have been fixed sooner. To add on to that, they somehow made it where sometimes the spiders would just one-shot you through your armor, but I'm assuming that's been fixed as well. On Terminus, we had the parasites, which were just reused from Shadows, and both of the starting maps were just pretty boring special rounds. As for mini-bosses, the Manglers and Abominations were a remake and a reskin of Margwas, but worse. Neither were terrible, but just boring a bit. At least Amalgams were new, but their grab mechanic could be so annoying, and it seems sometimes they would grab you when they shouldn't be able to. But at least it was still a new enemy, and pretty cool. Over the next few maps, we would see Manglers, Manglers again, Amalgams, Parasites, and Vermin return again and again to the point where it was honestly ridiculous. A game with 4 years of development time shouldn't need to reuse enemies like that when it makes up such a huge part of the gameplay. So like I said earlier, it makes it nearly impossible for these maps to have a unique feel when there are so many reused assets like that. Moving through the game's lifecycle, this did improve with the addition of Doppelgas, which are super quick with lower health and produce a hallucinogen effect, which I think are one of the best additions in Black Ops 6. I really don't have any complaints on them. Further, with the special rounds, we got the toxic zombies in the mansion, and then the Klaus bombers on Reckoning, which I think were both great. They're each menacing and an actual threat, but they aren't overly hard, and the round still moves on quickly. Also on the Reckoning, we got Mecha Klaus, which I think is the best mini-boss zombie on this game. They have a clear weakness with their shield generators on their shoulders, but provide a big challenge, similar to Panzer from the old games. I think while it started out very rough, they improved with time. Listen to the community with complaints of spawn rates for Manglers and round lengths with Vermin, so I think while it would be great for each map to have its own unique boss or special round, I at least appreciate that what we did get was an improvement and had some pretty good positive points. With that, I think I've covered everything I had in mind. Now, let me know in the comments, which one are you? An OG that has been playing since day one? Or someone who has only picked up zombies since Cold War, or anything in between? And also let me know if I was able to change your mind, that maybe the new games aren't so bad, or successfully explain why the other side of the community may think the way that they do, and that the old games were the golden days. Well, I miss the old days. I can appreciate that we're moving in the right direction with the new ones, and I'm excited for where they plan to take things in Black Ops 7. I'm glad you spent some time with me today, and I'll see you in the next one.